going, YouTube? Today we're going to talk about aura stackers and how it relates to the 3.15 patch, and pretty much the starter build I will probably most likely be doing. I'm going to go over how the Archmage gem is really affected and why I believe that Archmage Storm Brand is still going to be a viable build. I also tested it out a little bit with a 4-link, which I learned was a really bad idea because the 4-link damage is actually just atrocious because of the way that Archmage actually scales with mana multipliers. And I'm also going to go over quickly the patch notes and the most surprising things I found in it. And there are some things that completely shocked me, mostly stuff that related to an aura stacker and how the skill Spark is actually buffed like crazy for no reason at all. But I know a lot of people are upset about the patch notes, and I do hope that the league will actually be enjoyable because the Expedition Challenge League is going to be a big part of why people play the league, right? So no one really knows how enjoyable the Challenge League will be to do. It does look like a little bit of an abyss, but it really depends on how good the rewards are and how good the logbooks are to play. So, oh yeah, and there's also 4 new endgame bosses, so that would be a little interesting. But first off, I'm going to go over the patch notes and the most important things and most shocking things that I found about it, because there's actually a lot of stuff from the patch notes and I just can't read off every single thing. Okay, some of the main things that is actually pretty shocking. I mean, everyone knew that dot over time multi was going to be nerfed on cluster jewels, and flask notables are pretty much all nerfed. However, they did decide to nerf self-chill. So the cold conduction thing no longer grants enemies chilled by your hits are shocked, or enemies shocked by your hits are chilled, which means that self-chilled is no longer possible. They also decided that brand skills are probably just a little too strong, so they got rid of Holy Conquest notable giving cast speed and movement speed. Grand Design no longer gives cast speed, and Brand Loyalty no longer gives attachment range, while it also gets a 1% or 2% more damage nerf. And also, all of the unique flasks are changed. Bottle Faith is now no longer 2% base crit and is now 150% crit. And then all of the other ones are pretty much changed a little bit. I don't think anything was too crazy about this, besides the fact that there is Legacy Bottle Faith now. And Adrenaline Flask, of course, everyone already knew about. And Ascendancy changes, pretty much Ranger is still 50% ailment immune, so that you only need very little investment because you're already probably going to be getting this wheel over here, which will grant you 20%. So you pretty much only need it. You can even take these to get ailment immune, or you can just craft 1 or 2 on a piece of gear. Elementalist, of course, everyone knew that was going to get nerfed. It's probably still fine. Now, here is actually the main thing, is that almost every single gem, support gem in the game, had their mana reservation multiplier multiplied, or cost multiplier higher. So now like Swift Brand's 150 to 110%, and then like every single one is incredibly higher. Now, some of the big changes that is kind of scary is the fact that Awaken Hex Touch, for whatever reason, GGG just decided Awaken Hex Touch, you shouldn't exist in the game anymore. So you have it that supported skills can apply an additional curse. You can no longer apply an additional curse, so this gem is pretty much useless. And pretty much every single Awakened gem had their quality severely nerfed, while also nerfing some other aspect of it. So like Awakened Spell Echo, I don't know if it's actually in here, but I'm actually not sure if Awakened Spell Echo got nerfed, but every single support gem pretty much got nerfed. However, the main thing to think about is that Awakened Cold Pen and Penetration gems are not really that nerfed. It was a tiny change. I don't really know why, because Cold Pen and Penetration gems are actually very, very strong. But stuff that's majorly nerfed is like Wed, which is a 20% more damage nerf. But basically, what this means is that there will be a shift in gems. So like, because of the fact that Diamond Flask is so bad now and it's so hard to get crit, since your crit chance is no longer lucky, I can see people using Increased Critical Strikes gem and Power Charge on crit gem, or even crit damage gem. However, this does not mean that the support gems will really change that much, because people will still choose the support gems that give the most damage, even if they're still worse, right? Oh, and another thing is Empower will probably be used a lot. Empower was already borderline reaching some of the power level of the previous support gems. And the fact that Empower is not changed will mean that Empower will be used in a lot more builds if it's not already used already. And let's see here. Basically, they buffed every single like random melee skill by a good amount just to show that they're giving something for melee back. Although they did nerf the attack speed of a lot of support gems, so you can pretty much expect all your main active skills to have a lot less attack and cast speed. And the big change here, I think, is Spark. And I'll get to the Spark change in the Aura Stacker section because the change was actually very, very surprising. And it actually makes me really look forward to the league now because it will be the league where Spark or Aura Stackers in general are probably going to be the best build in the game. And it's not even going to be that close this time around. So here is another thing that's pretty surprising. I didn't know that they were actually going to buff all monster life in the campaign. So all monster life is going to be buffed, right? So it's going to be 46% at level 1, and then it's going to get lower and lower until it's going to be level 84. So level 84 is when the monsters will be the same. So what that means is that white and yellow maps will probably be a little harder. And then they also added some new monster types in Act 1. I don't really know how dangerous these new monster types will be, but it'll be remain to be seen. And then here's all of the gems they added into the game. And I don't think they really did any gem changes. I think they changed Eye of Winter's base damage because it was just so bad that people were making fun of it and how the skill is dead on arrival. But the bulk of the patch notes that everyone hates is the support gems. So I do think there will be a little bit of shuffling around of the support gems you use, and your skill will probably end up doing like 30 to 40% less damage. However, you will be swapping out the support gems that are no longer usable as they're just so much worse that there's another better option. And I think like if you're a crit build, you have to give a lot of consideration to using crit support gems because of the fact that it's hard to actually get 99% crit or 95% crit with the nerf to the Diamond Flask. And then they also nerfed, of course, all of the defenses of Fortify effect. You no longer get Fortify effect on a lot of nodes on the tree. Unleash was also nerfed, and they also added some Flask effect nodes on the tree and Flask duration. So they pretty much want us to invest into the Flask nodes on the tree in order to make Flask feel like they were before. And overall, all these item balancing things are pretty normal. One big thing I see is that Amethyst Ring is now 17 to 23 Chaos Res instead of 9 to 13, so this should make it a lot easier to get Chaos Res. Blessed Boots for Aura Stackers could be pretty good at 17% Chaos Res, especially now they're renamed to Fugitive Boots, and this is pretty big because Low Life will be the way to go on Aura Stackers, and it's very likely that this will be the base that we will end up crafting on. And this is pretty much just a bunch of stuff about the flask and the number. Oh yeah, Cinder Swallow Urn is a flask that's probably unusable now. It has like 100 charges, so pretty much the flask will never be up. 100 charges means that you have to kill 400 monsters in order to get one use of the flask, which is just absolutely crazy. And Mjolnir was buffed a little bit, and I like how they said that socketed lightning spells triggered by the Mjolnir now have a 0% cost and reservation multiplier, and then they have no cost and exclamation points. So this is supposed to be like a huge benefit or buff to Mjolnir. However, no one's probably going to use it, so I don't really know why they're so excited about it. And a lot of people are also really upset about the Coralito's signature unique flask because you don't have duration on poison anymore, and I assume that's really bad. I've actually never really played a poison build before, so I don't really know how that's affected, but main thing is I was really surprised about the brand notables being nerfed and the Spark gem being buffed. And here is actually the biggest surprise of them all, or not the biggest surprise, is the fact that Ritual and Delirium are on the map device. I will say that the best money making methods in the league will probably be doing the Mirror of Delirium early on, or doing like Ritual in Haywork Hamlet, of course. But this is actually something that will save the league and give it longevity. Doing Delirium is fun, and it's actually a pretty low trading thing. So you pretty much just do the map, you sell the Simulacrum Splinters, and you make money. And Nemesis is on the map if you want to do more Nemesis currency. They didn't nerf Nemesis currency, and that means you can roll Beyond on the map and then put Nemesis on it too. So it should be a pretty fun league still, regardless of all of these nerfs. And I do think that a lot of the doom and gloom is probably over-exaggerated, but the league should still be fun, and I'm sure that everyone will play it, right? But now I wanted to talk about the Aura Stacker real fast and how it is in 3.15. So Aura Stacker actually got an insane buff if you're playing Spark. So Spark gem, if you read it here, so Spark gets like now deals 2 to 29 lightning damage at level 1, and then it goes up to 70 to 1326 at level 20s. Before it was 63 to 1198, so that's about a 10% damage buff. Now the main thing here is Spark now has 125% effectiveness of added damage, and before it was just 100% effectiveness of added damage. So that means Smite now will give you 125% of effective added damage instead of 100%. Now, for anyone who plays like high level Aura Stacker, when you use Smite at level 30 or level 29, your damage for your Spark gem will literally more than double, or sometimes even 2.5 times. So what this means is that damage component that causes your Spark to double is now 25% more. So the damage output of Spark will probably be about like 30% higher than it was last league. So that 30% amount will pretty much cancel out the whole support gem nerf, in my opinion. It probably will be still slightly lower depending on the support gems you choose. So in the end, if you're playing Spark Aura Stacker, it is very potentially likely that your damage will be very similar to last league. Of course, the Bottle Faith and Flask nerf will have to take effect, so your damage will definitely be lower. But it will probably be one of the closest skills in 3.15 to its damage output in 3.14 because it got buffed for no reason. I don't really know why GGG decided that Spark was such an underplayed skill that needed the love-in. I don't know if it's because of the videos I made about Spark Necromancer and they felt bad for the skill, or they felt that Spark needs to return to its heyday of glory. But what this might mean is that Spark Aura Stacker could be a very meta skill if other people catch on to it, which is kind of bad because I want the gear to be cheap. But Aura Stackers do have the weird thing where the more people who play the build, the cheaper the items will be, because the more people will corrupt the jewels, and that will lead us to having better and better gear. So this gem over here is the big surprise, I think. Some other stuff that was kind of surprising was the cluster jewels for brand, for people who are more interested in the Penance Brand Aura Stacker. Now the Penance Brand Aura Stacker is also kind of interesting because in the super late game, you will use a Penance Brand helm, right? And a Penance Brand helm is much more, alluring when the support gems are nerfed, right? Because Socketed gems deal 30% more LE damage is pretty much as good as a top tier support gem now. And you also have Socketed spells have crit chance, which is pretty much another support gem that's unnerfed. Obviously, Conk and Hypothermia are heavily nerfed, but the 30% more LA damage being not nerfed is a pretty big deal in the grand scheme of things. So Penance Brand should still be pretty strong. And the fact that you only use like 3 support gems and one of them is Cold Pen, which is not really that nerfed, is a pretty big bonus. So overall, Aura Stackers are going to be incredibly strong relative to other builds that got nerfed in this league. And if you're playing the Spark variant, you can expect that your build will be kind of similar to last league. It's not going to be exactly the same damage output, but it will be very strong. And another thing to know is that Pinpoint did get nerfed, so if I was going to play an Aura Stacker and I was playing Spark, I would probably drop Control Destruction and either run Power Charge on crit with some power charges, or I would run Pinpoint. I would probably run Pinpoint because it's such a big DPS increase that it will feel a lot better to use. And with the nerf to movement skills and second wind on Flame Dash and Smoke Bind, I would probably use Leap Slam and maybe put Fortify in for some more survivability. But Leap Slam or Shield Charge is pretty fast overall, and it has no cooldown on it, so it'll feel really fast if you can just zoom through the map. And I was using Shield Charge a long time ago, and Shield Charge will always feel pretty good, or Leap Slam, because you have a lot of attack speed from Haste Aura and Vol Haste and the Necromancer portion of giving you free attack and cast speed for auras. So Aura Stackers also are pretty good there, and the fact that their main movement skills are no longer like that bad or have that big of an opportunity cost compared to using Smoke Mine. And we can also use those movement skills to potentially proc Fortify, which is actually a huge survivability increase. But overall, Aura Stackers are probably going to be meta the longer the league goes and people figure out that it's the best build. and I don't know if they'll revert the Spark change next league, but the Spark buff is wild, as Spark is probably one of the best skills for farming the Delirium content, or the what's it called when you do the wide open maps, if it's like Tropical Island or something like that. But now I wanted to talk about my league starter build that I most likely will be doing, which is the Archmage Storm Brand Ascendant, and why I believe the build is not as nerfed as it may seem to be. Okay, a lot of people believe that Archmage is dead, and Archmage is definitely severely nerfed, and I know that. But they do have something that offsets it, which is Archmage. So the way Archmage works is that it pretty much scales it based on how much your mana cost of your skill is, right? So you gain added lightning damage equal to the mana cost of your skill. So right now, the mana cost of my Storm Brand is 1,000 mana. So the thing that offsets the nerf is the fact that the cost and reservation multipliers will be a lot more. So you can see when you put an extra link, it goes up to 1,400 mana. So each link is pretty much multiplicative in scaling. So all these gems are higher now. So Conk Effect is 1.5, 150%. Lightning Pen is actually the same at 140%. Swift Brand is 150% now. Archmage doesn't have one. And then if you're using like Controlled Destruction, it's 150% instead of 130%. So what this means is that before it gives you, Archmage is right now 6% of unreserved maximum mana. That value is higher. So if you take that 6% value and then you multiply it by the support gems, you'll see that you get 16.8, and then with the new values of the support gems, you get 23.6. So this is like some very general math. I don't know if it's actually correct. So you can see that you get 40% more mana cost for your skill. So if you say your skill has 1,000 mana, and then how much added lightning damage you would get. So right now at level 21 Archmage, you get 110% of your mana cost. So you pretty much would get 1,100 added lightning damage if you had a 1,000 mana cost skill. Now, because of the new support gems cost modifier, after in 3.15, your skill will now cost 1,400 mana, even with it only using 5 as the base of the thing multiplied. So what that means is that your skill will cost 1,400 mana, and then you multiply it by what the Archmage nerf now is. So it's 60% of your mana cost at all levels, and you will gain around 840 lightning damage. And what that means is that Archmage comes out to be around like a 30% nerf. So even though on the gem level itself, it seems that Archmage got its damage actually cut in half, the amount that is actually nerfed is a lot less. But anyhow, it doesn't even really matter about the nerf to Archmage, because damage was never really an issue for the build. The main thing is survivability. And survivability wise, Archmage is still the same. If you have the mana regen, you have agnostic, you still have around like 2,000 health regen per second. You still have the effective HP pool if you have like 3k life, of having like 7k to 8k life. And so the main thing I was worried about is whether you could actually sustain your mana cost while mapping without having an Enduring Mana Flask. So here you can see this is what Enduring Mana Flask has become, is 66% reduced. So that means you can see you get 734 mana over 7 seconds if this was an Enduring Flask. So that means you get around roughly 100 mana per second. And before, this was 300 mana per second. So I use this flask here. This simulates what the new Enduring Mana Flask will look like. So I put this on a Sacred Mana Flask. So what this means is that even with using this flask with the Pathfinder Ascendancy, you still get all of the flash charges because this is unchanged right here. And I took out, so I unspec'd Arcane Surge. I took out Arcane Surge on here, so that when I put Arcane Cloak, it won't gain Arcane Surge. I even unspec'd the Ascendancy, and it was still perfectly fine for mapping and bossing. And the build still did enough damage to do like the maps and map bosses. It did take quite a while longer, but the build is more than fine in terms of the mana regen issue. Like, it was always known that the mana regen would never be an issue, because this build can literally run Righteous Fire, and it can even run boots that have 7% lost mana per second. So the, the Arcane Surge buff, or the Arcane Surge nerf, is not going to affect it at all. And the damage is still going to be there, and you're still going to have the survivability. And most importantly, the build will be cheaper. I know a lot of popular streamers have discredited the build and say it's trash, but I honestly do not think it'll be trash. I'm going to be probably playing this build at the start. I'm going to make a fleshed out leveling guide for everyone for Armageddon brand. And I believe that you can buy a 5-link or 6-link cloak very, very cheap early on. And this item will probably be pretty cheap. The helm, Aziri's foible will be cheap, and these are just mana. So I do think you want mana regen on the rings if possible now. And crit, you probably want to get more crit chance for spells on your wands, because crit chance is definitely an issue. You see crit chance is only 24.36%. So you probably want to maybe run an increased crit strikes gem instead. Or using power charge on crit. However, power charge on crits, did they actually change power charge on crit? I don't even know. Power charge on crit. Oh yeah, see, power charge on crit is 130% reservation. So I would probably use Peacock. I'd probably pick up some power charges on the tree, and the damage will be more than fine. I'm pretty sure you can still even do the fear, as you will be relatively tanky while playing this setup. But the cluster jewel nerf does hurt, but having brand loyalty, Holy Conquest, you lose 20% attachment range, you lose 2% damage over here, and then you lose 5% move speed and 10% cast speed. But I think Holy Conquest is still really good for mapping in terms of clear speed, and you should definitely pick it up. But TLDR is the demise of Archmage has probably been greatly exaggerated, and I do think that people will... I mean, it's greatly exaggerated for this specific build because the damage is still there, and they did nerf like the ball lightning thing with the Pledge of Hands, but this build doesn't use Pledge of Hands, and I do believe that this starter is still perfectly viable. You just can't level with the Storm Brand Spell Slinger thing. You probably have to level with the meta skill of Armageddon brand, and it's going to be a quick preview. It's just going to be, you're going to go to Elemental Focus early on, grab these cast speed nodes with fire, and take all the fire damage nodes over here probably. But I will make a pop for it. But I do think this is probably our best bet on Scion, and even with the nerfs, it should still be more than viable. Overall, what do I think of the patch notes? I do think that I don't really think any of these changes are like terrible per se. I do think all of it compounded together will make the game feel a lot different. And in the end, the game will only feel really bad because we're used to a certain playstyle, right? So because we always play with a Quicksilver Flash, like I have the Quicksilver Flash right here of Adrenaline. You can see how fast I'm running through the map with it, right? Now, if I don't have the Flash up, I'm literally walking like a snail. But I would only notice this if I was someone who played with Alchemist, Quicksilver, Adrenaline every single time. I do think it will be a huge shock to softcore players who are used to like just zooming through the map. And they really don't want us to move through the map real fast, because they do nerf like move speed everywhere on the Ascendancy, on the gems, on the jewels. Even the cluster jewel for Holy Conquest is nerfed. But my main gripe again with these patch notes is that it doesn't really address the main elephants in the room, which is trade. Having to go try to buy anything from the bulk currency tab is really bad, or bulk item exchange tab. This should be a commodity auction house. And I don't think crafting is in a great state still. There's really no real crafting besides just gambling on essences and chaos orbs. And maybe some harvest crafts here and there. I do hope that they introduce a new crafting system, but that will probably be in the next league. All our problems will be fixed. I'm pretty sure they'll buff some skills next league. And I'm just looking forward to the next league. The league after Expedition League, because it will probably be the best league that PoE has ever seen. Or maybe it'll be just as bad. But I do have high hopes for Expedition League. I think it will be a lot of fun, and I hope everyone will join me in watching my build diaries. I will be streaming every day on Twitch, and you can see me try to struggle to build an Aura Stacker, but TLDR Aura Stacker will be the best build in the game, as Spark is overbuffed, and I have no idea why. But thanks for watching, everyone, and I hope you find more meters and exalts than I do, and see you next time.